The Imperial Fists were the 7th Legion of the original 20 Space Marine Legions. Their Primarch is Rogal Dorn. The Legion remained loyal during the Horus Heresy, after which it was reorganized according to the Codex Astartes and divided into chapters. The Imperial Fists have maintained an intense rivalry with the Iron Warriors since prior to the Horus Heresy, with whom they share a specialization in siege warfare. The Imperial Fists are recognized to be among the most loyal chapters to the Emperor, and have been instrumental in holding the Imperium together during the bleakest of times with renowned stubborn resilience. Because of their service to the Imperium, especially their role in leading the defense of Terra during the Horus Heresy, the Imperial Fists are also known as the Defenders of Terra. Founding. The Imperial Fists were formed on Terra as the 7th Legion. The Legion was one of the few that recruited entirely from their homeworld and were the only formation to have recruited from across all of Terra, including areas where other legions claimed exclusive rights of tithe. Despite recruiting from such a wide range of locations, 7th Legion recruits consistently possessed a taciturn nature and were quick to action but reserved in speaking. The Legion had the benefit of being united with their Primarch shortly after their formation, while their character had yet to take full shape and as much as 70% of their ranks were still aspirants. As a result, the Imperial Fists and Rogal Dorn developed as servants of the Imperium together, forming an unbreakable bond based upon the common desires for self-discipline and total commitment to order found in Dorn's temperament, and the gene seed of the Legion. The homeworld of the Imperial Fists is still officially given as Holy Terra. However, in functional terms, the chapter has been fleet-based since being united with their Primarch Rogal Dorn, after which the massive starship phalanx has served as their mobile fortress monastery. Nonetheless, the chapter still maintains a presence on Holy Terra, including the Pillar of Bone and Column of Glory. Prior to relocating to Terra, the Imperial Fists' homeworld was Inwit, where Rogal Dorn was raised and where the Legion took many of their aspirants and starships from. The chapter still emphasizes its historic role as the defenders of Terra, and maintains a coded sequence of alerts and signals to coordinate the rapid redeployment of its full forces, to reinforce Terra against attack if the contingency arises. The Unification Wars. The Imperial Fists participated extensively in the Unification Wars, and are noted to have taken the cities of the Crystal Sea, conquered the fortress of the Fifth Circle, and defeated the Wind Caller clans in the Himalaya at the expense of losing 3 battalions. During this time, the Legion earned its first battle honor, Roma. In their first decade of existence, they razed 600 citadels on Terra. Veterans of the Unification Wars commonly displayed the campaign's badge on their power armor. The Great Crusade. During the Great Crusade, Imperial Fists behaved as crusaders and were driven to conquest. First Captain Sigismund was a prominent voice of crusade ideology, believing that the Great Crusade was an expression of man's infinite desire to master space, and that maintaining the Imperium would require perpetual war. The Legion espoused a philosophy of victory that held, victory was not enough, to conquer one had not only to defeat one's enemies, but to hold the fruits of that victory. According to this view, victory therefore required consolidating power over the conquered society after the conclusion of combat operations, usually by way of building fortresses and military installations to compel a compliant social order. As a result, the Imperial Fists were considered to be the most direct expression of the Emperor's design of uniting humanity, and were generally regarded to be the foundation rocks on which the Imperium was built. In their capacity as crusaders, the Legion emphasized their military role in the Great Crusade, and eschewed the civil responsibilities of governing worlds for recruitment and other purposes. Dorn is famously recorded as saying, "I want recruits, not vassals." After being granted recruitment rights on Necromunda following a major victory against the Orcs, the Legion situated itself as guests rather than masters. This attitude contrasted with the approach of other Primarchs, such as Proterabo of the Iron Warriors, who took every opportunity to garrison worlds, claim their tithes and develop a personal empire. During the Great Crusade, the Imperial Fists demonstrated a stern disposition, even in comparison to other Space Marines. Upon first encountering the Imperial Fists, Captain Goro of the Death Guard remarked that they seem a somber lot, to which Captain Iacton Cruz of the Lunar Wolves responded in the affirmative, adding that he had served with a veteran Imperial Fist for a year-long campaign who never once smiled. The stern character of the Legion earned the Imperial Fists the nickname, the Stone Men. Doctrine and organization. During the Great Crusade, the Imperial Fists were employed as a strategic reserve to reinforce fledgling campaigns or to achieve breakthroughs. The Legion rapidly redeployed between battlefields and developed special expertise in siege warfare and mass shock assaults. Offensively, the Imperial Fists employed assault formations, surgically applying force where and when it was required to shatter enemy defenses, often deciding the outcome of campaigns. Defensively, the Legion was commonly tasked to defend strategic positions and defeat enemy breakthroughs. Regarding the Legion's prowess in defending sieges, Horus once remarked to Dorn that, "If I ever laid assault to a bastion possessed by you, then the war would last for all eternity, the best in attack matched by the best in defense." The Legion also possessed special skills in urban warfare and space operations, including fleet and void warfare. The Legion was organized to support its crusade posture. The Imperial Fists maintained a fleet of 1,500 warships, a force quantitatively and qualitatively superior to any other Legion. The Legion command and control structure featured theater marshals in charge of all forces taking part in their area of responsibility, fleet masters, and siege masters. Ad hoc commands of castellan and seneschals controlled formations called crusades or households, respectively, each comprised of 2 battalions. Infantry unit configuration tended towards the 2 extremes of assault loadouts or long-range heavy weapons. To replenish combat losses, the Legion often recruited from conquered populations en masse. Recorded examples include recruiting every man who could carry a spear from the hunter tribesmen of Tiberna, taking half of the members of the Techbrat gangs of 7, and recruitment of every youth older than 10,000 ship cycles from the Nedran ship clans. The size of the Legion was recorded as 98,356 just prior to the outbreak of the Horus Heresy, though this figure is not thought to be precise. Campaigns and actions. The Legion was instrumental in extending control over the Sol system in the early phases of the Great Crusade, performing key roles in the Unheard War, the War of the Consus Drift, and the Arrhenius Wars. During the Unheard War, the Emperor ordered the Bell of Lost Souls tolled for the first time in honor of 50 Imperial Fists who sacrificed themselves to defeat a Psi plague in the Azurite stations. On the plains of Kenyatar, the Legion's 5th Battalion broke the lines of the Tyrancy with an arrowhead formation of 50 war machines. The Imperial Fists are noted to have conquered Galabaz, a subterranean city buried in surrounding mountains. During operations on Ophelia 7, 10,000 Imperial Fists accompanied the Emperor and 100 custodes. At Ascaniza, the Imperial Fists and the Lunar Wolves formed the Emperor's vanguard to break the shrouded dynasties. The Imperial Fists were so effective in their role during the Great Crusade that the Legion accumulated a record second only to that of the Lunar Wolves. As a proud testament to their accomplishments, battle honors were displayed for kilometers in a gallery aboard the Phalanx. However, in the course of accumulating honors, the Imperial Fists developed hostile relationships with other legions. Most notably, the Imperial Fists maintained a bitter rivalry with the Iron Warriors, which was largely the result of both legions sharing similar combat specializations. Less known was the strong mutual hatred between the Imperial Fists and Alpha Legion, who clashed on more than one occasion prior to the Horus Heresy, though the nature of these clashes is unknown. The Imperial Fists are also known to have participated in the Compliance 943 alongside the Emperor's Children, where Rogal Dorn allowed Primarch Fulgrim the honor of breaking the Orc stronghold, and at Thyssen Sound alongside the World Eaters, where Angron chose to pursue the enemy while the 7th Legion remained to protect his supply lines. the Imperial Fists operated closely alongside the Emperor of Mankind during the Great Crusade. The Legion served as the Emperor's personal praetorians and fought directly alongside him more than any other legion. The Emperor bestowed the name Imperial Fists upon the 7th Legion early in the Great Crusade, a reference to when many saw the lands conquered by them. It was as if the hand of the Emperor had descended and gripped with an unbreakable fist. The Emperor also granted them the right to wear the laurels of victory as part of their heraldry. After the successful conclusion of the Ullanor Crusade, the Emperor returned to Terra, ordering the Imperial Fists with him, where they were tasked to fortify the Imperial Palace. The Horus Heresy. Rogal Dorn and the Imperial Fists were the first loyalists to learn of the Horus Heresy other than those attacked on Istvan III. While attempting to reach Terra as ordered by the Emperor after Ullanor, the Legion responded to a distress call from the Eisenstein. Rogal Dorn discovered Death Guard Captain Nathaniel Goro and Remembrancer Mercedes Ollerton, who carried news of the events which had transpired on Istvan III. In response, Dorn ordered the bulk of the Imperial Fists to the Istvan system, while he and the Legion's veteran companies returned to Terra to inform the Emperor of Horus' treachery. Significantly, each deployment faced difficulties from the warp storms that had enveloped the galaxy, which made navigation nearly impossible. On Terra, Dorn assumed command of the Imperium's armed forces. There, the Imperial Fists oversaw the fortification of the Imperial Palace, as previously ordered before the heresy, and other duties relating to its defense, such as counterintelligence. They nonetheless also fought scattered battles throughout the galaxy, such as against the Iron Warriors in the First Siege of Hydra Caudatus. Dorn immediately organized the Imperium's response to Istvan III. After making contact as best as possible with the other legions, which the warp storms hampered, Dorn ordered that Horus be confronted on Istvan V, where his forces were entrenching themselves. Discussing the reasoning of this strategy with Malcador the Sigillite, he stated that, "Kill the head and the body will die." Notably, Dorn elected to keep his veteran companies on Terra while apparently assuming the bulk of the Legion, which had been ordered to the Istvan system, would join the assault on their own initiative if they were able to navigate there successfully. Mars. At the same time, Mars entered into open revolt, endangering the Imperium's access to war material. In response, Dorn ordered 1st Captain Sigismund and Captain Cambadias to command 4 veteran companies to secure the forges of Mondus, Oculum and Mondus Gamma, which together produced the majority of Astartes weapons and armor. The Astartes force was accompanied by a number of Imperial Army units, including 13 companies of Saturnine hoplites and 4 regiments of Jovian grenadiers, also under the command of the Imperial Fists captains. The operation was met with overwhelming resistance by traitor forces belonging to the Adeptus Mechanicus. The 2 companies under the command of Cambadias were outnumbered 100 to 1, and Sigismund's force of the same size was met by 2 full Titan legions. Facing annihilation, the Imperial Fists withdrew from Mars, abandoning the forges but successfully evacuating at least 12,000 suits of former Lawian Quarchar's power armor, and twice as many weapons. The 4 veteran companies involved in the operation suffered heavy casualties and were reduced to half strength. Fall system. Months later, the bulk of the Imperial Fists forces were continuing their attempt to overcome the warp storms and navigate to the Istvan system as ordered. The force had been completely out of contact with the Imperium since their departure, and was unaware of any further developments concerning Horus' treachery, including that the remaining loyalists on Istvan III had been crushed utterly. The fleet regained communication with the Imperium when it received urgent orders to return to Terra, while being engaged by a large Iron Warriors force during the battle at the Fall system. Both sides suffered serious losses, but in a testament to their discipline, the Imperial Fists fleet successfully disengaged and set course for Terra as ordered. Defense of Terra. As the traitors inched closer to Terra, it fell to Rogal Dorn and the Imperial Fists to oversee the defenses of the Sol system. In the subsequent Solar War, the Fists attempted to contain Horus' advance, seemingly defeating the Alpha Legion during the Battle of Pluto in the process. However, ultimately, they failed to prevent Horus from attacking Terra itself. During the defense of Terra, the Legion made indispensable contributions to the defense of the Imperial Palace alongside the White Scars and the Blood Angels. During the battle, the Legion made a massive move to reinforce the palace from the Great Sky Fortress at a critical juncture of the battle. It is also known that Dorn had the honor of accompanying the Emperor aboard Horus' battle barge and that he discovered the bodies of the Emperor, Horus and Sanguinius after the final drama had run its course. Horus Heresy Aftermath. Rogal Dorn's grief was immense in the aftermath of the Horus Heresy. Until that point, Dorn had been true, noble and enduring, but now he became an avenging son dressed in the black of mourning. Whereas other legions, such as the Ultramarines, dedicated themselves to rebuilding the Imperium, the Imperial Fists launched a crusade against the traitor legions, hunting them down and leveling fortress after fortress. Yet the Legion was still cognizant of its broader role as it lent itself to direct calls for assistance by Imperial worlds, and institutions more so than other legions during this period. Nonetheless, Dorn was absent from the highest councils of the Imperium until he returned to Terra upon being summoned by Rupert Guilliman to be presented with the Codex Astartes. Dorn initially rejected the Codex Astartes, and enmity developed between him and Guilliman. Dorn called Guilliman a coward, citing his lack of participation in the defense of the Imperial Palace. Guilliman accused Dorn of being a traitor for refusing the Codex. This enmity quickly involved other Space Marine legions and a rift developed. Leman Russ of the Space Wolves stood by the Imperial Fists, while Jagatai Khan of the White Scars and Korax of the Raven Guard supported the Ultramarines. A second civil war appeared likely when the Imperial Fist strike cruiser Terrible Angel was fired upon by the Imperial Navy in connection with the Codex crisis. However, Dorn ultimately relented after spending 7 days meditating in the Pain Glove. There, he concluded that the Legion could no longer serve the Emperor who had been, and must instead serve what the Emperor had become, which involved accepting the new order of which the Codex was a part. The Iron Cage. It was Dorn's decision that the Legion would symbolically enter into the Pain Glove together and emerge according to the Codex Astartes. This opportunity presented itself in the battle that became known as the Iron Cage. The Imperial Fists had largely dismantled the Iron Warriors' empire in their campaigns immediately after the heresy. Upon discovering the Eternal Fortress, a 20-square-mile fortress constructed by the Iron Warriors, Dorn, fueled by his enmity towards Proterabo, committed the entire Legion to its assault. Proterabo and his Legion were masters of defense and siege in their own right, and had designed the Eternal Fortress as a trap to ensnare the Imperial Fists. Ceding further advantage to the Iron Warriors, Dorn led the assault without his customary care in planning and preparation. What ensued was a near massacre. The Imperial Fists formations were broken, reduced to fighting with combat knives battlebrother by battlebrother in half-flooded trenches with their ammunition expended. Yet, the Imperial Fists endured and the Iron Warriors were unable to finish them, lacking the faith to make the ultimate sacrifice that victory demanded. The Ultramarines then intervened, driving off the traitors. Cleansed by their sacrifice at the Iron Cage, the Imperial Fists immediately began their reorganization with the fully hardened, veteran force that remained. For the next 2 decades, the newly formed chapter went into retreat in order to master the tenets of the Codex Astartes. Despite the death of Rogal Dorn during the First Black Crusade, the chapter has since assumed a place alongside the Ultramarines as exemplars of the Codex. As part of their reorganization, the Imperial Fists participated in the second founding, christening the Soul Drinkers, Black Templars, and Crimson Fists. The Legion's most fanatical battlebrothers composed the Black Templars, while the more level-headed members founded the Crimson Fists. Secretly, Dorn established a contingency for his successors. Dubbed the Last Wall Protocol, it called for the Imperial Fist successor chapters to reunify into a legion once more should Terra come under dire threat. The protocol was enacted 1,500 years later during the War of the Beast. War of the Beast. The Imperial Fists suffered greatly during the conflict against orcs that became known as the War of the Beast. Nearly the entire chapter was annihilated by the orcs on the world of Ardamantua, just during the war against the Xenarace Chromes. The only known survivor was the badly injured Captain Corland. In the aftermath of the debacle, Corland enacted Rogal Dorn's secret, Last Wall Protocol, which called for all of the Imperial Fist successors to meet in the Fall system, and combine as a legion once more should Terra come under dire threat. This saw the Black Templars, Fists Exemplar, Crimson Fists, Iron Knights, and Excoriators all rendezvoused at Fall. The Fists and their successors would take the lead in the campaign, saving Terra from an attack moon, recovering the Primarch Vulcan, attacking the Beast's capital of Ullanor, and founding the Death Watch. During the second invasion of Ullanor, Corland was killed by the Beast, and with him the Imperial Fists became extinct. They would have remained so had Fists Exemplar Chapter Master Maximus Thane not rebuilt the chapter by having each of the Imperial Fists' second founding successors contribute a portion of their strength. Thane became the new chapter master of the resurgent Imperial Fists, which was swiftly rebuilt. The destruction and subsequent rebuilding of the Fists was kept from the larger Imperium. Thane oversaw the final invasion of Ullanor, in which the Beast-class orcs were all slain. In the aftermath of the war, Thane declared that the Fists would no longer remain sentinel on Terra, but instead embark on the phalanx in a crusade against mankind's enemies. Shortly after, in what became known as the Beheading, the High Lords of Terra were all slain on the orders of Draken Vangarich, Grand Master of the Officio Assassinorum. Thane, now Lord Commander of the Imperium and fed up with the High Lords himself, allowed Vangarich to rule in his stead while he swept the remnants of the Beast's forces from the Imperium. A century later, Vangarich had become too unstable. The Rogue Master of Assassins was slain by a Space Marine strike force of 400 Marines under Thane, drawn from the Imperial Fists, Halo Brethren, and Sable Swords. Only a single Space Marine, Chapter Master Thane, survived the campaign, and he led the Fists in a series of campaigns to put down the rebellions that sprung up after Vangarich's death. Gene Seed. The Imperial Fist's gene seed possesses two unique characteristics that are expressed in physiological and behavioral terms. Physiologically, the chapter has lost two of the organs particular to Space Marines, the Betcher's gland, which allows the Marine to produce acidic spittle, and the Susan membrane, which allows the Marine to enter a state of suspended animation. Behaviorally, the Imperial Fists are given to an obsession with conquering pain by force of will and discipline. The chapter's obsession with willpower and discipline is sometimes characterized as further involving a deep-seated drive towards self-sacrifice or penance. This trait is often simplified as merely involving a stubborn disposition. The chapter considers the behavioral characteristics of its gene seed to be both a strength and a weakness. On the one hand, such tendencies engender stubborn conduct on the battlefield and ensure battle brothers are more likely to fight on despite terrible injuries. On the other hand, Imperial Fists may subconsciously invite such injuries and difficulty, which can Imperial battle planning and lead to unnecessary risks of personnel and material. Along these lines, the Imperial Fists are noted to be reluctant to accept the possibility of defeat when retreating would be the wisest course of action. The chapter consciously attempts to minimize the liabilities of these behavioral traits while maximizing the benefits. Doctrine and organization. The chapter retains its previous special ability in siege warfare, urban warfare, and defense, although aggressive rather than defensive operations are preferred. The martial reputation of the chapter has focused primarily on siege warfare. The Imperial Fists are renowned siege masters par excellence. The chapter is noted for grimly defending fortifications against innumerable foes, or storming valiantly against bastions. The Imperial Fists also place great value in marksmanship and are renowned for their accuracy with ranged weapons, especially bolt guns. Battle Brothers spend a disproportionate amount of time in Devastator companies in order to master the art of the long-range kill. While a practitioner of the Codex Astartes, the chapter also maintains its own martial tradition, known as the Rites of Battle, as codified by the scholar Rhetoricus in the Book of Five Spheres as an addendum to the Codex Astartes. The force structure of the Imperial Fists supports its predilection for siege warfare and high-risk operations. The chapter maintains more siege-related weaponry than any other chapter, including a small army of Thunderfire cannons, Vindicators, and Centurions. The chapter also maintains a reserve of initiates far deeper than any other chapter to replace its combat losses, which at times have included entire companies or more being destroyed at a time. It is a point of pride for the Imperial Fists that the chapter cannot be fully defeated so long as one battle brother remains on phalanx to begin the process of reconstituting even the most grievous attrition. The Imperial Fists also maintain a chapter council composed of the chapter's captains. The full purpose of the council is not clear, but includes settling disputes between members of the chapter and serving as a court in which the chapter master can hear the cases of the disputants and render his judgment, including punishment for offenses. Thank you for listening to this entry from the Warhammer 40,000 Lexicanum.